Welcome to this demonstration of RecordPoint and its integration with Workday. RecordPoint is a data governance and security platform that allows you to manage all of your organization's data through a single pane of glass. Today, I'm going to talk about specifically what Workday records might look like in RecordPoint and how you can manage them. I'm going to talk through the 3 phases of data governance, which are ingestion, classification, and disposal, and show you how Workday records perform at each stage. To start off, if you would like to ingest your Workday records into RecordPoint, you need to do so through this area, which we call the connector gallery. 2 points to note about RecordPoint here is that we are system agnostic. That means you can connect systems from Microsoft, Google Suite, and anything outside or in between. As you can see here, these are a large range of out-of-the-box connectors that we support. The other thing about RecordPoint is it is manage in place. That means that your everyday Workday users don't even need to know that RecordPoint is connected in the background. You can do your classification, management, all without disrupting your user experience and without putting any burden on your users to tag data. I already have my Workday connector connected up here, and this information has already been ingested into RecordPoint. This is my demo Workday environment. We have both Workday Financial and Workday HR in this system. So today we're going to look at 2 different types of objects. The first will be a client of my hypothetical Workday business, and the second will be an employee of my Workday business. To start off, this is what RecordPoint looks like, and I'm going to search for all of the records that are from Workday. To do so, I need to search for content source contains Workday. This search is looking for metadata, but you can also look for content search. So that means you can combine both content and metadata search to find specific records in Workday. Today, I'm looking for both companies and people. So I'm looking for folders essentially containing underlying information. Here, the results that have been returned are all of my Workday businesses clients, and you can see there are a bunch of business names there. We're going to look at one in particular. The second thing I can do is search for an employee. So the way that we have configured Workday for this environment, and it is highly flexible dependent on your organization's needs, is that we treat employees as we title them using their employee ID. Now that is to protect their personal information being in metadata or being anywhere unprotected. Their employee ID number is essentially a de-identified version of these employees. So these are all my employees in my hypothetical Workday business. Let's look at one particular customer. We're going to have a look for Global Modern Services, Inc. Now, I know that this is my record number for this company, so let's go ahead and look at it. Here's what this client or customer looks like in RecordPoint. So you can see I've got my unique identifier. We've titled it as a folder because there are a lot of underlying records. And of course, the title is the company name. This is a working hyperlink, so if I would like to click directly into Workday and I have that user permission, which I do, it'll automatically pop up. You can also see when this company was created in Workday. We also have specific metadata that we've pulled directly from Workday, including the company's address, the category, the group, the customer ID as per Workday, and even the CSAT score. Let's have a quick look in Workday to see what that information looks like. So we've got the address here, and we've also got the customer ID and the approval status, which we saw in RecordPoint. Underlying this company that we are treating like a folder in RecordPoint, we have access to all of their transactions, invoices, payments, those types of documents. So here you can see they've got 32 invoices, but they've also got payments and deposits. And we have ingested each of these as pieces of data. In RecordPoint, to find those underlying pieces of data, I just navigate to Records, and you'll be able to see all of the invoices labeled by their invoice number. And there is quite a lot there. So let's have a look at 14923, which is this invoice here. So this is all the invoice information that we've brought into RecordPoint. Again, you can see the copy of the metadata in RecordPoint versus the copy of the metadata in Workday. You can see the customer number, the company name, the currency, and the invoice net amount. So over here, we can see the exact same thing, invoice number, and the net amount, which is over here, 1,821. The next thing you can do in RecordPoint is look at customers or employees. As I said before, we use the employee ID number as the title of the record. So let's go have a look for that. As I mentioned before, we're looking for content source equals Workday, and title has a number in it because we are using employee ID numbers. Let's have a look at this first employee, 21590. So as I mentioned, this is a working hyperlink, so I can go and have a look at the actual record in Workday. Again, you can see the created date and the underlying system, which is Workday. You can see the employee's email, their location, whether they're a full-time employee, their hire date, management level, etc. So that is pulling in these job details from Workday, including the hire date, full-time employee, location, as we just saw. In this employee's file, we can see their underlying records, which are likely to be compensation documents. So we can see exactly how much they got paid. So here you can see their salary in USD, and you can see the exact same thing in Workday as well. So here you can see their salary, currency, and that's what you can see in RecordPoint. So why is this important? We have talked through ingestion and what Workday records may look like in RecordPoint. And as I mentioned, it's highly customizable. So we can treat these records however your organization would like us to treat them. However, now that you've pulled in all of this general and Workday specific metadata, you can actually categorize this information and keep it for as long as you need and delete it as soon as you can. This is a good way to minimize the amount of data you're holding, thereby protecting yourself in the event of a data breach, but also making sure you're compliant with all of the laws required to keep your financial and employee information. In RecordPoint, our file plan is how we describe different categories that records belong to. So for example, company records and financial records may be what we decide to put our customer invoices in, as we looked at earlier. This is called the rules tree, and it is one way of categorizing information. As an example, I have set up some rules for when the source system contains Workday over here. The item number begins with F, which means it's a folder, as we saw, and the title contains a number. It's going to be an employee record because, as we saw earlier, that means the employee ID is the title. If the title does not contain a number, it's likely to be the transaction records of companies that we looked at. So what you can do once you've categorized your information is you can decide how long to keep this for. Depending on your legislative framework, you may need to keep financial records for 7 years, for example, and we can automatically identify that these records are ready to be destroyed in 7 years' time. We can even start the clock ticking based on Workday specific metadata. For example, we know the hire date of this employee here, Zhu Wang, and we can actually decide to destroy her records 10 years after her hire date, for example, which is specific metadata only found in Workday. So for example, we've got the hire date here. We could start the clock ticking based off this specific metadata and destroy the record on the 11th of the 24th, 2034. You can set that specific metadata over here in the file plan. Let's look at an example for employee records. For salaries, for example, we create what we call a retention schedule, and we can destroy it 10 years after the hire date from Workday. Let's do the salary effective date. If I save this, now every record from Workday that is about an employee and going into this category will send a reminder to destroy it after 10 years. Importantly, if someone just deletes or destroys something in Workday, it will still be preserved in RecordPoint for the amount of time required under its retention schedule. So for here, I could destroy Zhu Wang's record tomorrow in Workday, but it would still remain in RecordPoint for 10 years, ensuring I remain compliant. We can also put this on a legal hold, which means you can retain an in-time copy of that piece of information, and it actually cannot be deleted from RecordPoint at all. Another way to classify information is using machine learning and artificial intelligence. We do have a machine learning engine where we can tell it to look for a certain document type, and if it recognizes it, to put it in a certain category. So for example, we can teach our machine learning algorithm that this is an employee's digest, and everything that looks like this should be kept for 10 years as per the relevant legislation. So we've only really scratched the surface of what RecordPoint can do today. What I didn't touch on is the fact that we can also scan through your documents to look for personal information, credit card information, redundant, obsolete, and trivial information, and categorize that data, delete it, or lock it down as you so require. This will be particularly useful for employee records in Workday that have a lot of personal information. We have spoken through how you ingest Workday records into RecordPoint, how you classify them into different categories, and how they become eligible for disposal when the retention period has expired. So to conclude, RecordPoint gives you a single pane of glass into every single system in your business, and Workday is no different. Now you can set a single rule for employee records that applies across Workday materials, but also SharePoint materials, Exchange materials, and so on.